I'm Chris Stanley. I'm the oldest of the three Stanley girls, although there's another set of Stanley girls in the second row. And I'm not exactly the oldest of that set, but we are overwhelmed with the number of people who braved this snow this morning. And I think that I have two aunties who are going to be very mad with me for telling them not to come when they find out that Ed and Ruth and their kids came from Alabama. I mean, the whole back row over there has come the farthest. You guys get the award, and your Aunt Meg is loving seeing you again. She loved you all so much. What we had planned to do this morning is about 45 minutes of contemplative silence after the manner of the Society of Friends. Those of you who are acquaintances and friends of ours know that we were raised in the Quaker tradition, and the way that works is the silence itself can be very healing and moving, and if anyone feels led to speak, feel free to stand up and speak. Jeremy has a few remarks he'd like to read a little bit later, and at the end of the service will end when there's a hymn being played, one of Mom's favorite hymns being played. We would love to invite all of you down the street to Paul's Restaurant Cafe. It's about one block past the circle on the same side of the street, and we have a room there and some food for people who are traveling back to wherever they're traveling, and we'd love to visit with you some more and remember our mom. So I just thought, for those of you who kind of lost track of our mother over the last few years, in 1995, Mary Eva was diagnosed with early onset of Alzheimer's, and she continued to be a great actress, and the three of us really didn't accept it for a long, long time, and Wilmer was very good at hiding it. So for the longest time, they did just quite well together until in 2003, our dad became ill. And at that time, Karen took care of both of them until he came to live with me and my family until his death. Darlene and I would come up occasionally and try to give Karen and Bill a break. And whenever we came, Wilmer would have a list of things that needed to be done, and usually a little business agenda of things that he needed to discuss with us. And on one of those occasions, the agenda item for our meeting was that he wanted to start planning Mother's funeral. So a lot of what we have around us, the photographs, the music, go all the way back to 2003 when Dad was planning this. He didn't want to make the ladies at the meeting have to cook a big meal for all the people that he thought would be coming, and they've been very kind to let us continue with that. And then he had a few words that he wanted to be said, but he didn't want to say them. And those of you who know our parents know that our father was a man of few words, pretty deep thoughts, but he rarely, if ever, spoke in meeting and would never have wanted to face all of these people at the front of a room. So I took notes, and when I reviewed my notes the other day, I had written next to them that he, in his own words, he basically said, "Don't get carried away, Christine. No ad-libbing. I'll be on the facing bench telling you that." So the warning was that he would be sitting between Karen and Darlene, and there would be no going on forever and ever. But what he did want me to say is, please don't be sad for our family today. we have said our goodbyes a long time ago and are glad that our mother is no longer suffering. The vibrant, fun, pretty woman who was our mother has been gone for a long time. Mary even never had a chance to say her goodbyes because this terrible disease ravages your mind and steals your thoughts, excuse me, before you have a chance to collect them and express them. So there are many of you she would have liked to have told how much you meant to her, especially people coming from Alabama and Carrollton and all over the place in 4 inches of snow. But by the time she realized her mind was going, she wasn't able to express those thoughts. Karen, Darlene, and I really appreciate all of you coming because although this wasn't a surprise to us, it's always a surprise. And the one thing that we know is that our dad loved her more than life itself. He was never afraid of the next dimension after he left this earth, and that he knew that they would be together and the same as they were, and forever they would be together. So, in that sense, we are comforted that our parents are together. I can now see Karen going, and William is definitely.
If I could tell a story about Grandma, she was definitely rich in friends, and this is a representation of that we have right here, everybody coming to celebrate her life. When she would come and she would babysit Christy and myself, the policeman would be sitting at the bottom of the hill, and he'd see her coming around the corner in the big boat of a car that she had, and he'd go, whoa. And Grandma would come into the house, and she would always remark what a friendly fella that guy was. He was always waving to her. Wave salute her every time. You know? Good. A person's life is often difficult to summarize. In the case of Mary Eva, or Meg as she was known to many, the sum of her life could be described in a series of acts, oftentimes random acts of kindness, and the lessons that they taught her daughters and they may teach us today. Here are a few. Accepting others for who they are. From childhood, her children thought nothing of her limp. That was just their mom. She didn't let it stop her from serving her family, working, or even traveling through the mountains of Costa Rica. She simply lived with her every day in her quiet, gentle way. Many would remark about her smile and her twinkle in her eye. Her girls would often dissolve into giggles and laughter at the evening dinner table and would be sent to run laps about the house by Wilmer. But Mary Eva oftentimes would join in on these giggle fests. The girls would say that Wilmer knew it was a losing situation. He'd just get up and leave the table. Even as Alzheimer's cut the connection between her thoughts and her memories, Karen notes that the staff of St. Mary's would remark about how their mother smiled and got that twinkle in her eye when certain visitors would come. Now Mary Eva's daughters caution us there was also a flip side to that smile. One called it the look. Another referred to it as the monster face. Whatever the name we give Mary Eva's face at those moments, her children knew immediately that they had transgressed. A skirt too short, too much wiggling and meeting, something spoken that should have been left unsaid. Mary Eva's grandchildren will testify that the look seems to have been genetic, handed down to Chris, Karen, and Darlene, who have been known to use it on their own children, co-workers, and even their patients. In the same way, her smile and her humor remind us not to take things too seriously. Even though she was raised as a Quaker, she loved music, and it was a part of her life. Singing in the garden or watching Mitch Miller and Lawrence Welk on TV, those were some of her favorite pastimes. Karen remembers playing the piano, and her mother would saunter up to her and begins singing along. Says Karen, I would just play louder. You know, Mom wasn't such a great singer. Being conscientious and meticulous about all you do, she gives us that lesson. Even the smallest assignment would garner rapt attention, and even keep working all night to make sure that the task was completed. And an example of this conscientiousness and meticulousness we point to her potato salad. Every slice of potato was the same, exactly the same. Every piece of carrot identical. And the scientifically blended sauce was a better kept secret than the formula for Coca-Cola. While her daughters often tried to duplicate it, the best review they ever got from Wilmer was, it's almost, but not quite. Always be helpful. Mary Eva spent much of her life helping others. She cared for Wilmer and his elderly mother, taking care of her during the day, feeding her dinner at Mary Eva's house, and taking her mother-in-law home and sleeping with her at night. Her daughters remember her doing everything possible to help this elderly neighbor, Idnetta Blackburn, stay in their home as long as possible. Yet, we found out it was not all selflessness. Mary Eva did not get her driver's license until she was 40. And only later did the daughters learn that Mary Eva had made a promise to God. She'd take care of Idnetta if only the Lord would place his hand on the man, known for his toughness in testing applicants so that she could get her driving license. Like her life, Mary Eva's path to her driver's license was not all smooth sailing. In teaching her to parallel park, Wilmer positioned two junker cars in the front yard with a space in between them. The girls remember watching from the window with glee as their mother would first bang the car in front and then crash the car in the rear. Her life lessons seem to have reached others. So in closing, we'd like to share two condolences that the family has received. From one family friend, my condolences in the passing of someone who was a significant presence in many of our lives. May you find peace in the countless memories of your extraordinary mother. And from another family friend, the angels are singing and we are rejoicing that Meg has long last been released to fly away to her heavenly home, where there's peace and rest, as well as joyful reunions.
I remember teaching Sunday school and little Darlene coming in, smiling away for her little lesson on the Sunday school that Marlene could teach. I just marvel at how wonderful and Christian-like that she was.
Some of you may know I met her at Starch. And Mary Eva, some of you may know better as Meg. Starch and Meg, Wilmer and Mary Eva. It doesn't matter what her name is. Because now, they are being called blessed.
Connected with Spectrum Meg's family. I had to identify Meg in one phrase, it would be positive energy. I don't think I was ever a recipient of the look. Yeah, I should have been. All I ever saw was positive energy. I don't think I can identify anybody who smiled more. And I think that comes from a number of things, but one of them is her experiences, I believe, as a child and how she was raised. who she was, and it has carried on into the next generation as well, and the one after that. So the impact that she has had is large and is continuing. I remember when Raymond Stanley's son David took a wife, Carolyn Stanley, and she was getting acquainted with everyone in the family, and of course there were a lot of people in the family, and she struggled a bit with some of that stuff. And she was talking to me one day about trying to explain something that had happened, and she said, we were at a family gathering, and she said, that guy, I remember his name, let's see, it was Mary Eva's husband, Stretch. I said, no, it's not like that. But I remember Mary Eva teasing her about that for some time. Stretch. But again, it was mentioned that each of us has trials. Certainly we do. Certainly she did. But you would have never known many of those trials from her countenance.
My father, Bill, was Mary Eva's oldest brother, and I'm so thankful that our family can be well represented today because she has such a strong influence on us. And it's thanks to her that we all have teeth in our mouth now. She and, of course, her strong, silent supporter husband paid for dental care for us when we were growing up. And it was obvious to us her love for her brother and her love for others. And so she had a big impact. And it was because of her that my nephew Jonathan is sitting here today, because he was so ill that he would have died if she had not picked him up from the crib where he was sleeping and had his parents take him to the emergency room at that point. So, you know, Jonathan had a soft spot in his heart for Aunt Meg also. And she just, I moved to Ohio at the convincing of my cousins. Aunt Meg was my Ohio mother. My aunties and uncles were just very wonderful to me when I came up here, and I'm so thankful and grateful for that history, that legacy of strong family relationships. And I'm so grateful that my siblings were willing to travel to come for this today so we could honor her. And I just remember so many of her sensitive, caring acts toward us, toward other people. I appreciate that. I know that sensitivity sometimes made her be kind of poo-pooed, you know, that she worried too much type of thing. You know, that's the danger of that. But I can, you know, it's nice to remember the positive things that affected. But no matter how many good acts of good works that she did, she knew that wasn't what would get her in the arms of the Heavenly Father. She knew that she needed to trust personally in Jesus Christ as Savior. And so I'm thankful to know that she did.
My family of 6 children and wife Hulda, we were the other Stanleys on Kirk Road for many years. And we had the fun of getting our mail mixed up with the 2 Stanleys close together. And then the thing that really is something I remember is our oldest son, Dave, came to the age where he thought he should have a motor home or a motorbike. So he took his old bicycle and started put a platform on the back and an engine and fixed it up, and he took his maiden drive on that bike down the road to the other Stanleys. And as he approached them, a big collie dog came out and suddenly ended his transportation. And here came Mary Eva down out of their house. It was right in front of their house. And she came out and started helping him pick up pieces and put him in a pile beside the road. And pretty soon David came walking back, pushing his bike. And he said, "Mary Eva saved my life." She came out and took care of that dog. And this is something that we all remember, and our family is very much indebted and blessed by having lived close by the Wilbur and Mary Eva Stanley home.
And as the third daughter, you know, I wasn't the beautiful, I wasn't the intelligent, I was the one that had to take care of things. And so I was also the stubborn one. Uncle Wilbur said I was the stubborn one. But you know, it comes in handy being stubborn sometimes. So Aunt Meg would send us a package every Christmas, and I remember more chocolates. And I still like those little. Excuse me. I have a red sewing kit that she gave me 30, 40 years ago. I still use. She touched us on our face. Very generous. She put up with me when I was a very frustrated, angry teenager. She always wanted to make sure her brother Bill was in the best care of his problems. And she just cared.
Ever since I was born, I knew them. I went to meeting with them, and lived in close proximity. Only lived about a mile away from them, the way the crow flies. And Mary Eva worked at the Rural Supply, the Eveready Gas Company, and we crossed paths in there a lot. We crossed paths at meeting, and we just, you know, you begin to associate with people and realize who they are and appreciate them. Thank your blessing, or thank God for your blessings. And it was hard to imagine coming here this morning and not speaking, because she did care, and Mama cared, and they expressed that in their own way. It was generally more powerful than what other people can ever muster. And I did make some notes because I don't want to miss a few things here. Mary Eva was so quiet and meek, and I always remember when she would come up to me, she would start her sentence or her expression with one of two words. It would either be "oh" or "well," and you could just see the expression in her face, and whatever it was she was going to say was just starting to come out, you know, and she'd say "oh" or "well." And just for instance, Becky and I started our married life over on Short Road, so she would go around those two corners, you know, 3 or 4 times a day. We'd get to see that. And we had hung up some drapes in the front room there, and at meeting she'd come up and she says, "Oh," she says, "I wanted to tell you, those blue drapes in that dining room are so beautiful." You know, and it just, you know, drapes, and we did pick them out, and it was cool, but for her to notice them, it means so much, it meant a lot to us, you know. And a lot of what I was going to say was already said, and I don't want to go there again. I guess I want to talk about Christmas tree ornaments because it's the time of year. And each household has their own special set of ornaments, it seems, that they decorate their tree with. And you select the ones that mean a lot to you. And when people come to your home, they walk over that tree and they might ask you, what does this one represent? Or, I like this one, or why is this one here? And we all have a story to tell about those. And some of my favorite ornaments on my tree are ones that somebody gave us when we first got married, and they're very simplistic and they're not as really fancy as some of the others, but I look at those and they have great meaning and great memory to me by who gave them to me and when we received them. I think the scriptures speak better than any man or woman can speak. And I wrote a couple down. Walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called, and with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love. That's Ephesians 4, 1 and 2. Galatians 5, 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. This is the scripture I chose this morning that seems to represent Mary the most to me. It's 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4. But let it be the hidden man of the heart in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price.
And of course, talk about coming from Alabama for this. I really couldn't think of not coming. The number of times that she came to Alabama for special things. I think she made it to every one of our weddings. I know she made it to Birmingham when I got married. And things were important to her to come and support our family. And it was very clear that our father meant a lot to her. A couple of things I was going to share. One of my earliest memories was I rode up with my father to visit when I was 5 years old. And I do remember coming to Aunt Meg's house for a meal. And we walked in the door, and she's always so enthusiastic greeting. And, oh, Edward, how is thee? And of course, being a 5-year-old boy from Alabama and not being around the Quaker influence, I was kind of like, how is thee what? I pretty quickly picked up what she was asking about my well-being. And I said, I'm fine and so forth. But I still remember that to this day. And I also remember, like I say, the obvious love that she had for our father. And I do remember it's Melissa's wedding, and a little bit of tension, I guess, with all the preparations, and Daddy got a little agitated. But I remember her saying, "Now, Bill," and I think I remember her saying, "Now, Bill," and she could just talk to him, just calm him right down, and just make him see that everything was going to be okay. And I just, those were just special memories I had.
Wyndham Kirk was the youngest in this group of siblings, and I guess I'm going to represent the Cliff Gwynn family also. The Ohio gathering that would take place annually or biannually at either Sarah's or Cliff's, Mary Eva's, were such important parts of my growing up. I've never asked my father, what do you think of those, Dad? Because they were crazy times. And it was just so fun. Cousins were so great. And we're so blessed. And I'll just say thanks for my mom. As her father passed away, and she came to live with Mary. and storage. Such an important part of her life. So lost.
I see this gathering of folks who wish to be here as the embodiment of Meg's love that she has spilled out into the world, and it will continue to spread even further as we go back to our homes and share her love with others.
And if there's one thing, one lesson I think that all would want us to have is that families are important. Because I can remember working on my bachelor's and very much under the gun to get another paper written. And we had a family gathering coming up on Sunday. And it was down in Columbus. And I called her and I said, I just do not think that we're going to be able to go. I said, I've got too much work to do. And, you know, I'm working on this bachelor's and I just can't do it. Now, Karen, Mom would say, that would be the other thing. The other word would be now, Karen. You know, family's very important and, you know, your cousins are all going to be there and you really need to go and be with them. And she was pretty good at the guilt, so we did pack up and head down the next day. I just stayed up a little bit later and tried to keep Jeremy away from my typewriters. But family did mean a lot to her, which I think we've heard a lot today. And that's the big thing, I think. I hope that we all take with us how important it is, and that nothing is quite as important as those that we are closest to us and those that we love. I had different experiences from my sisters because I lived in Ohio and they didn't. So we were fortunate. I hope Christy and Jeremy think that we were fortunate to have Mom babysit for us at times. I remember one time coming home from a doctor's appointment and she was staying with the kids and I came home and Mom was nowhere to be found and Jeremy and his buddy Justin were in the kitchen. Flour covered their face, flour everywhere, and they were making a pie. And as far as I knew, they knew nothing about making a pie. And I said to Jeremy, so what are you doing? He goes, well, we picked some berries in the woods down the road, and Justin and I are making a pie. I said, oh, where's your grandmother? Well, we told her we didn't need her, and she's outside. So I went outside and I said, Mom, do you know what the boys are doing in the house? And she goes, they're making a pie. And I said, you didn't think you needed to be in there while they made this pie? Well, they told me that they didn't need me. I did ask her who was the adult in that but she thought that was perfectly okay. And she loved her grandkids and would do just about anything for them. I know sometimes they got frustrated because she loved them so much. Another instance when we were reminiscing that I think about was that, and my friends will attest to this, my mother was a big hugger. And I have gotten that from her, though I've learned to ask people before I hug them, is it okay? But Mom would hug the nieces and nephews whenever we had a family gathering, and I know that there were many that tried to get to the car first before Aunt May got them, you know. Because whether they wanted it or not, she was going to give them that hug to let them know how much she loved and cared for them. We want to thank you all for coming.
You know, Ruth, the middle sister really does get the take care of the family genes, because Mom was the middle of that family. And when they were fractured with their mother in the hospital and grandfather dying, and she did take her younger siblings in, and She thought she was raising them anyway. I don't know if Aunt Sarah thought she was being raised or not, but she was in high school. And she worried about you guys all the time, that she could never get a birthday card out on time to save her life. But the Christmas package to Alabama was out the door December 10th, no matter what, every year. And Karen has inherited it. And I wasn't supposed to say anything about this, but Darlene, and this can be our ending, Darlene and I want to really thank you and your kids for taking such care of her all these years with dignity and kindness. And Jeremy going over and reading her books and showing her pictures on his computer and all the things that we never thought we'd have to do for our parents. And we are so grateful. It's taken a big chunk out of your free time and your lives. It's been another full-time job. So thank you.